Hello everybody and welcome along to today's live stream. Hopefully you can all see me and hear me and I'm not too wonky and we can begin to catch up on today's football news, and there are a few news stories ahead of what's likely to be a very interesting couple of days as the votes come in from the EFL clubs on what the hell they're going to do with the rest of their season. If you are in the live chat, hi to Chris there, and you appear in the video, do make yourself known, and if we have enough uptake, we will do some questions and whatnot at the end. We'll just go through these stories first. If you're watching on delay, get your comments in, and to everybody, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, all of that stuff, which apparently I have to plug because it puts me higher up the algorithms and more people will see these videos. So let's start with the Premier League. We've had the second round of their testing. If you remember back early last week, everyone tested on Monday, didn't they? And then Norwich did on Tuesday. Well, then on Tuesday, then Thursday and Friday as well, we got the second round of testing happening, and we have the results back for that. Very positive. Again, 996 Premier League staff, not just players, tested with 2 positive tests, 0.2% infected Premier League staff. They're going to work. 0.2% of these guys have the virus at the time of testing. Remember, there were 6 in the first load of tests. I haven't had this confirmed, but obviously, if the first tests were on Monday and we're less than a week away, then surely those 6 guys will be in the next round of tests because they should have been self-isolating. I haven't had that confirmed, but I've tried to apply logic and basic maths to that, and hopefully I've got that one right, but we will find out. In which case, that gives us a total of 8 people as of today working in the Premier League, isolating, so hopefully calming down the fears about big outbreaks or teams not being able to get players on the pitch. Remember, we are only in phase 1 of Premier League training. We're not touching each other yet, and we're still training in bubbles. One of the positive tests came from Bournemouth. We don't know who. Medical confidentiality, apparently. Remember, Watford had 3, didn't they? 2 staff and 1 player. Burnley's Ian Wone. So we know who a few of them are. Obviously, we want the guys who've got it to get well soon. But what we really want is for that number to stay as low as is possible. And 0.8% down to 0.2% is a pretty encouraging start before we go into contact training. Speaking of which, there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday where we will get the vote for contact training. Surely with these figures, that's going to be ratified and go through. Probably with the assurance of more testing and lots of information coming over from Germany and the other leagues where they're ahead of us. But every single member of staff, and they've got more information than any other industry. Yes, they're going to be, in close proximity in training, touching each other, doing marking drills, tackling each other, etc. But if we know so far that going into this, 0.2% of people are carrying it, then surely that risk is very low, and hopefully reason for them to vote for the contact training. We will see what happens there. My hunch is that will go through. No stumbling block as yet. Meeting on Friday as well for the Premier League. Fingers crossed they follow the EFL's example, and the Premier League will put in front of its members the information of what they are voting for. And again, you would think it will be the same as the EFL. It will be, right, you're going to stop, and this is what's going to happen. Likely points per game. Remember, no playoffs in the Premier League to that issue that people are bringing up, that relegation teams don't have a chance to play to avoid relegation, whereas playoff teams do have a chance to win promotion. That won't be an issue in the Premier League. It would all just go straight to points per game. So that would be the curtailment, and obviously the other side of it would be to play on. And again, my hunch is that they will vote to play on. I'd imagine that, not publicly, but there's a lot of big business that would be leaning on Premier League owners to make this happen. Get your thoughts in on the Premier League, where we're at. Nice, good number. Obviously, we have sympathy for the people who have tested positive. We hope they're okay. We need to remember the whole time when we're talking about this, though, and I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong on this, that money makes you immune to a disease, but remember, there is a difference between comparing fit young people with really good immune systems and very good socioeconomic situations and health and lifestyle with a family of 6 on minimum wage living in the middle of Manchester or what have you as an example. So hopefully these numbers stay down and the work environment is going to be fine for everything to move on. Chris says, hit that like button, people. Yes, indeed, hit the like button if you're in the chat. I would appreciate that greatly. In the Championship, we have our first results through from there as well. Remember, strangely, Premier League ahead in terms of training. Championship and EFL are ahead in terms of sorting stuff out off the pitch. So they're behind in terms of the testing. 1,014 tests have been done across the 24 clubs. Only 2 positive tests. So even more positive results, more positive as in better, not as in more positive results, if you get my drift. 0.19% of Championship staff who have been tested have the virus, and they have both been identified as staff of Hull City and both been identified as asymptomatic. So this is the interesting, or deadly part of this virus, where presumably these 2 guys have carried the virus for however long with no symptoms, but they would be able to spread it. And that's why testing is absolutely vital. And that's why I feel that some of these footballers are in a better situation than most people, because when I walk back into work on June the 1st, nobody's going to have been tested, and we don't know if anyone's walking through the door asymptomatic. So get well soon to those Hull players. They're not carrying symptoms, so I assume that they are fine. Sorry, I've just assumed they're players as well. They could be staff. Remember, there's this confidentiality on this from a medical point of view. But what that does tell us is that 23 Championship clubs out of 24 can continue if and when non-contact phase 1 of training begins, with a completely clean bill of health, which is great news for all of them. However, we will get the results through maybe tomorrow, maybe next 48 hours or something, on whether EFL clubs, remember we're voting by division, have voted for a curtailment or not. They vote for a curtailment, then only 4 teams need to bother with training, don't they? Fulham, Brentford, Forest and Preston, because we're only going to get 5 games if we vote for a curtailment. That's 2 sets of playoff semi-finals and a playoff final. So still interesting times. My hunch again is that Championship will be playing on, and again we're talking about the dark invisible forces. I think there'll be enough persuasive conversations from people with monetary interest in clubs getting up and down from the Premier League, let's just say, to make this happen at that level. John says, I have a sneaky feeling Championship clubs might vote to stop, but I think it will be close. We will see. Could go either way. Stranger things have happened. My hunch is the other way, John, but I've been wrong before. You've been right before. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So the situation is, just to reiterate one more time, clubs are voting either to continue or to stop, in which case we get points per game, which puts Leeds and West Brom up, which puts Charlton, Luton, Barnsley down, and Brentford, Forest, Preston, Fulham will make up the playoffs. John says, always the optimist. Not a bad situation to be in, is it? Hey, I wouldn't be very optimistic, however, though, if I was a Charlton fan, because not only are they in the bottom three, but we've had this embarrassing public the takeover in January, and then nothing happened in the transfer window, and then the two main shareholders falling out publicly, and Matt Southall being shamed for this, that, and the other publicly. So we've got some names in the ownership frame. Hugh Jenkins, formerly at Swansea, apparently interested in taking on Charlton, and Lawrence Bassini, yes, him again, who seems to appear whenever a stricken club needs help, but never actually manages to buy one. He was hovering around Bolton. So look, worrying times for the addicts. I think I prefer Hugh Jenkins if those two were the only options, but I'm sure it won't be that simple. Big sort of month or two for them, because one would assume that if a curtailment happens and Charlton are immediately relegated, does that alter owners' intention to buy or change financial things? I think I've got more dosh than Bassini. I think Bassini makes a lot of promises, maybe not with his own dosh, allegedly, but we will see what happens there with Charlton. Fingers crossed, a great club, Charlton, and my team Ipswich had some great battles with Charlton back in the Curvers days. Matt Holland and Darren Ambrose and Darren Bent all speak very highly of Charlton. How will end of contract loan deals work if we play on? Asks JR. We don't know totally yet, but the information I've got is that the three parties in loans have to agree one way. No, it wouldn't be one way or the other. They have to agree to continue it, and if all three parties do so, then the loan carries on. You've already had situations where I can only give an Ipswich example, but Josh Earl was on loan at Ipswich from Preston, and pretty much the hour his loan deal finished, he was sent back, obviously to save some money on wages that you don't necessarily need to pay. So. As always in football, the better the player, the more likely you are to be kept, and the more clubs will be likely to spend on you. If you're Anthony Knockaert or Ivan Cavaliero at Fulham, or Jack Harrison or Ben White at Leeds, then I'm sure all three parties will agree. Essentially, though, you could have a situation where the owning club could block. I'm sure Brunton would be very popular with Leeds. If they blocked on Ben White and took him back for the last few games. So we will see. You'd think that they'd come up with some blanket agreement to say, look, don't block for nefarious reasons. But hey, we know all about self-interest in football at the moment, don't we? So there you go. That's it on the Championship. Get your thoughts in on testing and 0.19% and training going to be starting back. Charlton, and how do you think the vote will go? Get into fun guessing games on that. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of other countries before we go to some questions. France. So for those people worried about legal Armageddon, here's some news from France. A French judge has rejected appeals by Lyon, Amiens and Toulouse over the decision of the French Football League to end its season early amid the COVID crisis. So all of these clubs have tried to complain, and the appeal has been rejected. France cancelled a while back. If I've got this right, Lyon were 7th, so they've missed out on Europe. That's their problem. Amiens and Toulouse, I believe, are both relegated, and they're not happy about it. So might be interesting for people at Tranmere and obviously at Charlton and Barnsley and Luton to be looking at that. Obviously different country, different set of rules, might be comparing apples and oranges, but this is the quote. In 3 orders issued on Friday afternoon, the court ruled that general decisions taken by the league's board of directors could only be challenged before the State Council, which is competent to hear regulatory decisions taken by national authorities such as the LFP. So that is the government backing the French league to make a decision. So hopefully you would get a situation where, well, don't really want to talk about our government after the recent meltdown in the last briefing, but if the situation works exactly the same here, then people will go after the Premier League and the government will say they are competent to make that decision. You voted on it. You don't have a leg to stand on. A lot of people have differing views on that. Do you think clubs should be allowed to sue? It's not going to help, but I bet if your club goes down, you'd be unhappy about it on points per game. So, and can you sue a disease really? Because really, all of us should be going and suing that Chinese market for trillions of pounds. I'm joking, of course, but that's the truth of it. Is can you sue germs really? Because the root problem of all of this is a virus, isn't it, that no one saw coming. So comments in on France and legal. Just one more thing in Australia, who's that? Manic Street Preachers, hey? They look like they're going for the localised solution where all the clubs are going to go to one city and they're going to do Gary Neville's Festival of Football there, which now means, I think that's been confirmed, I'm not entirely sure, someone will fact check me if I'm wrong, no doubt, but that means that virtually every solution we've had suggested since the start of this now seems to have happened, doesn't it, with Holland sort of cancelling, Scotland, that side of it, we've got the points per game, we've got the National League here, loads of different things, and we've got this Aussie rules that they've come up with their own unique solution there. So that is about where we are with all of our football stuff today. If any questions come in the comments, I will answer that. If you're in the chat, hit the thumbs up button in the meantime, which apparently is good for the channel and good for me. So least I can ask for, hopefully. And yeah, if you're watching on delay, get your comments in on anything we've talked about, get the debate going after the event. Baps says, very angry about Celtic, but thinks Liverpool should be awarded the league. Is that Stephen Gerrard who we're talking about there? So yeah, all sorts of fun and games in Scotland with Rangers, the red-headed stepchild there, and Hearts as well. They've gone down and they've had problems with the chief executive there, Neil Doncaster. Martin says, Championship will continue as if they don't, the Premier League would want them to join their league. Yeah, definite link to the Premier League, isn't it? Oliver says, Huddersfield given all clear, staff and players. How has the rest of the league reported? Well, we've said 23 out of 24 clubs in Huddersfield's position there. Only Hull, 2 asymptomatic players, so I'm sure they just need to keep away for 7 days and then test again. I think they're doing bi-weekly testing, so maybe if they're asymptomatic, I don't know what the ruling is there. If you're asymptomatic, whether I suppose you're still contagious, aren't you? So I assume we'll see those 2 Hull players in a week. In fact, I think I'm right about that. I think their statement said as much. And everyone moves on. Bap says, have you seen the condition of JKA? That'd be Jean-Kevin Augustin. Apparently, has he lost 100 pounds worth of body fat like all these Leeds players do under Bielsa? He looks ready. So a couple of Leeds fans. There you go. So people talk about advantages and disadvantages. Martin says, counting on Izzy Brown to keep Luton up. Pap says half his weight. Yeah, lots of teams are going to have sort of players that maybe weren't ready on March the 13th, but are still going to be ready now. Chris says, we're still waiting for the Premier League to confirm relegation. We are waiting for that. Remember, Greg Clark of the FA said he wanted the Premier League to honour relegations and that the FA would likely step in as a special shareholder in order to make sure that happens. Can you trust the FA for their word? Leeds always take more, Ben. Of course they do. Hey, except in behind closed doors games, we'll have an even playing field on that. Lots of arguments about advantages and disadvantages. How am I entertaining myself during lockdown? We have the dogs back now. I think was it Jaggy who asked me that question. I'm going back to work in a week, so I've only got one more week of this Now, lots of gardening, and I'm watching a program, but I won't reveal what it is in case anyone does any spoilers. But I'm 2 seasons into that. Lots of people keeping up with the German football. Yeah, I watched my first ever German football matches. William says, when do you think the league will resume? He says, hoping about 3 weeks. As in this season, William, I suspect 5 weeks from the start of training, which will likely be approved. So late last week of June, I would have thought, best case scenario, 4 to 5 weeks. I think the players are going to need. God knows what happens to the next one, but I guess we just sort this one out. Someone says, bet you're not going back. Sadly, I am a subcontractor, so if I do not show up for my work on June the 1st, I will then not make any money until, well, that's it for my academic year. So, yes, I will be showing up. I'm afraid. Martin says, I'm hearing 1st of June would be the championship vote. I think it's going to be much sooner than that, Martin. I think they're voting already on the solution, but I think, are you talking about when the start date comes? I beg your pardon. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to have all of what's happened there. Remember, the Premier League don't have a date, so we'll follow that. Will I do more Premier League stuff when we go up? The royal we, when you go up. I will, but not because Leeds are going up, because I'm not going to get to a game for a long, long while. And I've had to adjust on the fly here and do news videos here instead of match reviews, which have been really, really well received. But I'm going to have to keep doing that. So, yeah, but I'm fine with that. And to be honest, it's going to help the growth of the channel if I can manage to keep up with the news videos, maybe of an evening. And do some matches. We've got to see what happens. Got to suck it and see. But whether people will be more or less interested in match reviews when I haven't been at the game, and possibly more people are going to have seen the game, because you can take the, for Derby or a Leeds, you can take the 30,000 people out of the stadium, and they're all going to have watched on TV. Jim says, at least if Ipswich aren't playing, then they aren't losing. Well, there is that, but I don't know. Would I rather see Ipswich losing than no football? I think I'd rather see Ipswich losing. No football really, really sucks. Obviously, the broader health issues are the bigger thing there. But yeah, not been a fun couple of years to be an Ipswich fan, put it that way. Well, not been a fun 20 years really. What's the odds for West Brom and Fulham with Leeds losing in their final? Long. Very long odds. How far? I've forgotten the table, but aren't Fulham 10 points 10 points behind? So yeah, look, it's pretty much a formality. You can imagine if Fulham, it says 7 points is perhaps okay. You can imagine if Fulham even draw a couple, and those games disappear. It's only 9 games, isn't it, as well? So yeah, if I'm Fulham, I'm planning for playoffs and working that way. If you think about it, for those playoff clubs, that's potentially 9 out of 3, 12-game season. Or is it 7 games left? They played 37. They played 30. They played 37, haven't they? Fulham and Leeds still have to play, says Chris. Yes, they do indeed. And you would think that that game would now be easier for Fulham, given there won't be 35,000 Leeds in the stadium, but that's a big one, isn't it? Because whichever way that goes, you can close a bit of a gap. But look, it's going to have to be a hell of a tear by Fulham to make up these gaps. And I just think as well, the way that Bielsa works things, I think Leeds will come back very, very strong. Ollie, how far do you think clubs will get in taking legal action against the EFL if they feel? Good question. Like I said earlier, we've seen the appeals in France be rejected. I assume they can go another stage to some arbitration place. What I would say is it's only going to be championship clubs that might be able to even afford to go through all of that legal stuff. Although Barnsley have said that they would look at it. So we will see. I can't see it having any impact other than financially, though. In the same way the Carlos Tevez thing with Sheffield United did, I think they would still honour the relegations and then let them fight it back. And then if they lose, I think they would take that gamble. If they lose, they'll pay out. But yeah, I just don't know how many will have the wherewithal to go with that and have that hanging over them, especially given what the new landscape is going to look like. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. The higher up the pyramid, the more likely they said that people are going to go legal. Any more questions in the chat? Didn't Sheffield United sue West Ham for 25 million? Only got about 8. Well, there you go. Exactly. That's the example I'm citing. Lee says, if we have relegation and promotion in the lower leagues, can the Prem really use as an excuse? No, they can't, Lee. I totally agree with you. So that's why we need to kind of get it honoured in this instance. Someone's just asked, what do we think about all the away wins in Bundesliga? Is there a disproportionate number of away wins now? I haven't been checking the stats. That would be interesting. So maybe home advantage dying down a little bit. So maybe we could have someone sue if they have more home games than away games now, and that they have disproportionately been advantaged or disadvantaged in that regard. We will see. Alan says, League's president Javier Tebas has said Spain's top flight will restart on 12th of June. First week, only one home win, says Lee. As well, so Spain, 12th of June. I assume they've been training for a week or two, but I think people will start racing now, won't they? Adam says, hey Benny, you're looking forward to Villa's return to the Championship. I don't know whether you're a Villa fan or a Blues fan there. Obviously, I love going to Aston Villa. I wouldn't wish relegation on anybody, but if Villa did come down, I would love to go to their wonderful stadium and their great club and see their team play again. And obviously, that would be the same with Norwich. And do you know what? I've never been to Bournemouth. West Ham. God, imagine we got West Ham. That would be a one for the channel, wouldn't it? We'd have a whole new load of fans coming from there. So yes, that would be my view on Aston Villa. Any more? Be interested on a bit more info on that away wins thing. We'll see how, because they've got a 3-game week in Germany now, haven't they? We'll see how that goes, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to Dortmund and Bayern. That should be hopefully a real even playing field. I'm not sure where that game is happening, but it'd be interesting to see information as we get it. Ben Bloom, Ipswich aren't in the Championship, man. We're in League One. Stop dreaming. Not a lot I can do about that. Damien Collins says, unless the Premier League helps out. Yeah, I've seen a few things about Alan Nixon from The Sun has been talking about big bailouts and 200 million quid's worth of Premier League money, and lots of Premier League fans outraged about this. Remember that the Premier League clubs belong to the Premier League, so it is strictly speaking the Premier League's money to do with what they like, but the clubs would have to vote for that, I guess. So Eddie says, nothing new there, Ben. Coventry have played away all season. Yes, and Coventry recently winning at Ipswich. Coventry have been excellent, haven't they? So, yeah, we will see. Bap says they won't vote to have less. That would essentially be what they would have to do. And do they have an obligation to bail out the EFL? I don't know, really. Certainly not the parachute teams after giving them 45 million, but I think we all know my thoughts on that. 75 million over the 2 years, and if you were up for more than one season, 80 odd million. So hey, I won't bang that well beaten drum for too much longer. Right, thank you everybody for tuning in. Unless there's big news, I'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll stream early evening because we seem to get better numbers in the evening. So yeah, if you fancy tuning in tomorrow, I'll try and advertise that ahead of time. Obviously, if there's big news in the morning, I'll just run with it and try and get in there early. But maybe we're going to get some votes leaked tomorrow, and we'll see. I'm sure there's a conference call for someone. It's normally Premier League. Thank you, Chris. And Jim, talking about Sheffield Wednesday FFP, I won't go near that. Thank you, Adam. It's an absolute pleasure, by the way. People say keep up the good work. I actually consider it just chatting football with like-minded people. So brilliant. Thank you, Martin and Baps and JR. Eddie, very grateful for everybody coming into the chat and giving their info. And if you haven't given a thumbs up, thank you, Brett. As I always say, people like Brett said, you're doing great. It's honestly, I get most of the information, particularly club by club, from the live stream. So it's thank you to everybody for kind of joining in. Nice way to spend a Sunday evening, says Jim. Yeah, I think it's very nice here in Bedfordshire. I think I'm off for a dog walk in a bit. Thank you, Glenn. I need to send you a CD, don't I, Glenn? Maybe when things are a bit normal. Lee says, by the way, did the girlfriend cheat? She might even be on the chat watching from downstairs, waiting for me for a dog walk. I promise. Lee's talking about our the video we did with Shaylee about your girlfriend picking the team. I promise. What happened was we went for a run, and I said, "Would you mind doing it?" So she had about a day and a bit, and I think she might have thought about it. I honestly don't think she researched it, but I did think she had a little think about it, which is fine. Where it got ridiculous is where I think I helped with one of the positions, watched the video back, and then all of a sudden the team was getting ridiculous. And she did genuinely guess Ashley Cole, she said, "Oh, I'll put him there," and it went right at left back. So I promise, and what I was realising as it was happening, hopefully I showed some self-awareness here in the video, is that as it was happening, I was like, this is going to look so rigged, so rigged. But I absolutely promise. Her argument with the people who were accusing her was that would be a bit boring, wouldn't it? But I promise, yeah, it was. That I found it funny as well because she's been to some Ipswich games with me, but when the 90s England players from apparently she used to have an England shirt as well that Mel C used to wear. So yeah, I promise, I'd tell the truth on here that was not rigged. And the shirt voting thing, again, it was properly right. I've got the pictures, don't look at them. Here they are on your phone. So look, you either believe me or you don't on that one, but either you trust me by now or you don't. So but we didn't cheat, unless she did behind my back, but I trust that she did not do that. Right, I must go. Hit that like button, says Chris again. Thank you all the people who've hit the like button. And if it's a moderate news day, I'll see you tomorrow evening. If it's a big news day, I'll do something in the middle. I'm getting mocked now, aren't I, with the hit the like button. I've just realised I'm the butt of the joke here, so I will stop repeating that comment. Thank you everybody for watching and being so good humoured and sharing all your knowledge. And I'll see you all again very soon.